All right, here I am again. So, welcome to the part two. Notice I didn't put my little timer this time. I have a better idea when to start talking in this one, in this version of Facebook. So, yeah, so I pretty much listed the 5 points, the 5 stages of both Kohlberg and Ozaf and Munda, and at least my comprehension of it and how I've used it in my own practice. Uh, so what's the point of this? Why did I talk about this? Why do I think it's important to study this? Well, yourself as a diviner and yourself as who might also be defined as of a diviner uh, are will be in some sort of developmental stage, so to speak, or um, developmental I guess, progression that you will have done. And the idea is that developmental progression that you have in the stages of moral development and in the stages of spiritual or religious judgment will necessarily influence how you talk to your clients, or actually how you divine for yourself. And it's really interesting to know how that can play out. So in the second part of the chart, what I did is I lined up those 2 stages, and if you have this abstract idea of 5 stages, which are neither Ozer and Munda nor Lawrence Kohlberg, what you have is like general vague levels of cognitive complexity that you have about moral and spiritual questions, which could apply to divination. I usually find those 5 general types of stages really interesting. If you are of the Thelemic minded, one way that you can see it, the first stage is Isis, the second stage is Osiris, the third stage is Horus, the fourth stage is Maat, fifth stage, not many people have talked about it. I like to call it the stage of the Pharaoh, or of the God King. That is the adult king that has integrated both the transcendent and the immanent within himself. And then you have stage 6, which I've never really bothered naming, like you are like the sun god or the center of the universe or something like that, Ra himself perhaps. But the idea is that you have this kind of cognitive progression where you have an increase of complexity. You go from a very, very black and white thing, but you keep adding variables, you keep adding nuances, you keep expanding your consciousness so that you have a greater integration of the relationship between self and other. And when that happens, of course, your divination will have different tincture to it. Naturally, if you like going to bars and doing drunken tarot readings to random bar patrons, well, of course, your cognitive development level might not be as high as it usually is, but I guess the essential of it is that it's great fun. So, 5 philosophical principles of becoming. You remember causality, telos, free will, synchronicity, and providence. The idea of this table is that I'm going to explain a little bit how all of these 5 philosophical principles could manifest at those 5 different stages, starting from the quote-unquote youngest or least complex all the way to the most complex. The easiest one I'll go with right now is providence. I won't go in them, maybe I'll try reverse order anyways, but the easiest to explain will be with providence. So, you're going to this tarot reading, and then the tarot reader is in front of you, and their style of divination is talking about providence. Now, how will that person talk depending on their stage? So, stage 1, they're going to lay out the cards, and they're going to say, okay, the gods are telling you what to do. The gods, or God, or the universe, or, providence in general, they are telling you what must be done in the next steps. This is a direct message from them. This is where they're going to tell you that you have to do, where you have to nudge them. If you don't do it, there might be a reward and punishment, but this is the will of the divine right here. And then if you go a little bit more, stage 2, then you have that, well, okay, well, the gods have an opportunity for you. There's a chance for you to hop on the bandwagon or not. You can, it's something that you can negotiate. It's something that, if you are good to the gods, if you do the right thing, then yes, this is what they have planned for you. Take the opportunity. You can say no, but if you say no, something bad's going to happen to you, of course. Or, for example, if you say no, maybe they won't punish you that much, but it's once again, the gods are laying out a structure for you. It's not a take it or leave it thing. It's not an obligation. There might be more nuance. There might be more possibilities. It's not going to happen like cause effect, or it's not going to happen like linear from A to B. It's going to happen a little bit more with a little bit more flexibility for you. So the diviner at first, stage 1, they'll be telling you it's this and it's that, and that's what the gods want to say. Stage 2, they might say, okay, well, watch out for this. They might be guiding you here. They might be guiding you there. A little bit more vague. Stage 3. Once again, stage 3 is a stage where the person is a little bit more self-centered. They are, stage 1, you're not self-centered at all. I mean, it's total authority telling you. Stage 2, you're negotiating with authority. You're getting autonomy. Stage 3, you're autonomous. So what they have is this, well, okay, well, if the gods exist, this is advice for you. You can take it or leave it. If you take it, something's going to happen. If you leave it, something else is going to happen. But the gods are telling you something. No incidence on your life. If the information works, it works. If the hat fits, take it. And it will be much less consequential, because the focus of providence is on you. You become the actor, the central actor in the scheme of providence. So those would be like advice from the gods or ideas from the gods, which may or may not help, but you get to decide how that providence, whether that providence is there, and how that providence actually exists. So then when you go to stage 4, in this case, you still have all of that autonomy. You still have all of that capacity to, take it or leave it. It doesn't really matter. But in this one, the gods are revealing something to you. They have a message for you that will help. You are in no way obliged to have that faith in them or whatever. You don't have to have that faith in God. But in the greater scheme of things, this is a message that has some meaning, has some relevance to your life, that you need to kind of integrate integrate yourself into the greater scheme of things. So it's going to be a form of providence, not necessarily egocentric to you, but a form of providence that will have a little greater bearing excuse me, on life in general. Stage 5. Here you have the gods are getting much closer to yourself. Here the gods are having a conversation with you. They want to talk to you. They want to throw ideas with you. They want to help you philosophize. They want to help you have a better idea, a better grasp on perspectives. So they want you to open up to this idea that there is a conversation going on, and that the gods are not alone in directing this providence, that it's a constant conversation, it's a constant negotiation, it's a constant, but not a negotiation like level 2, but it's a negotiation in the ontological sense. So there's this ever-changing part, and your freedom has a great part to play in this providence, because the gods are basically acknowledging you way much more, just as you are acknowledging them. Stage 6, that's the hypothetical ultra illuminated person of stage 6. Well, you are with the gods eternally, is what I wrote in this one. Is that how you live your life is also the providence of the gods. If, for example, you look up that whole koinonia thing, or the fact that the universe is conspiring for you, that might be something a little bit more in stage 4. Stage 5 is like, well, the universe is conspiring for you, but they're actually conspiring with you, and you are being accompanied by this providence as you go. Stage 6 is you and providence are one, and there's kind of a large detachment from yourself, just as there would be a large detachment from the authoritarian perspective of the gods, or of God, or of the divine, or the universal will, or however you might call it. The ultimate, as Ozair Edmunda would call it. Okay, now let's look at the next column to the left, synchronicity. I recall having put the book on the group. So if ever you want to review that Carl Gustav Jung, excellent book. He's the first guy who talked about synchronicity. It's a really, really good book, and it's a very, very enlightening read. So synchronicity. And you have this tarot reader who's really, really into the synchronicity thing, but you have 5 of them, and they have 5 different stages. So what could it look like if you have that stage 1 synchronistic reader? Well, this is the typical person that they look at the card. Remember in the previous video I was saying, well, tarot cards are not road signs, they are symbols. Those people are very, very literal. So, well, those readers are very, very literal. So this means that. You see a cat, a black cat crossing your path, it's bad luck, because that's what it means. So those are very typical. The people who basically, they read the tarot to you, and then they kind of get out their little book and they're like, okay, you've picked the 5 of swords. So they turn to the page, it says 5 of swords. Oh, look at this. 5 of swords is the most negative card of the pack. The 5 of swords means this and that. So in this case, it's very, very linear. And strangely, I think that when people begin in divination, that's the most common one we see, especially when they're teenagers who are just beginning in divination. That's the most common scheme that people are there. What does it mean? And what does how do we interpret these coincidences? When it comes to stage 2, you kind of, this is what it means, but in your case, this is what it usually happens, but then again, your situation is not exactly that. So it's the whole idea that the reader that used to be very, very to go at the reading like clockwork, now they start having this nuance. They start having these elements that they kind of put in, these ideas that are negotiated into the meaning, into the synchronistic information, that it's no longer black and white, and it's no longer direct. There's a little bit of indirect negotiation, a little bit of a variability, a little bit of leniency in there that wasn't there when a person was with a strict X equals Y thing. Interpersonal accord and conformity. Okay, in the synchronicity column also, or at least the ego autonomy, stage 3 synchronicity basically, this is more like a person who will free associate as to the meaning of their dream. That's one example. So you come up and you talk to somebody about a dream that you had, and then they just start babbling on about all sorts of ideas that might mean this, but then again it might mean that, but you don't know, and then they just look at you. That was a really interesting dream. What do you think it means? What does it mean to you? And they kind of, and then you tell them what you mean, and it might have meant this, or it's probably related to that problem that I'm thinking, and then I might have this other element in the dream here that's provoking perhaps ideas for solutions. And then the person will basically ask you questions to really explore that symbolism and help you see things that weren't there at all. But there's no point of reference except yourself. the whole meaning is located in the subjective experience. Now, then you go up to stage 4. Yes, of course, there's this whole fact that we are subjective beings and that meaning is created essentially by our imagination, essentially by our cultural constructs and our upbringing and this and that. What I wrote here is the relationship between these events contain greater meaning, and it is up to us to discover it. So basically, what I mean by that is that once you've gotten to that stage 3 and you have complete autonomy of meaning, you will necessarily take a step back and say, well, is there something that I'm missing here? Is there something of meaning that I'm not necessarily imposing to reality, but rather that reality is imposing to me? That reality is giving me. So I'm going to sit back and stay open to all of that. So that for some people that might include research, that might include having a collection of facts, tables of correspondences, and so on and so forth. Religious traditions which will have greater meaning. Another example, if you are into paranormal ghost hunting and all of that things, well, once you have all of these ideas of these different traditions and try to compare those traditions to perhaps that they may enlighten or they might enliven the interpretations that you have been having yourself. Stage 5. The meaning we create between the events influences them. So here's the thing. So you have this synchronistic events, and you've been thinking about all of these meanings, what the cards mean, what the coincidence actually has to tell you in the situation. What you have then is this whole idea that how should I put this? You're integrating, I would say, your own participation within synchronicity. In that, the meaning that you interpret will change the quote unquote objective meaning. I guess in science we could call that the observer's principle. When you observe reality, you change it. And when you understand the meaning between coincidences, and you participate in that meaning between coincidences, you are essentially helping that meaning grow and change and become something else. So that you are an active player within the whole synchronistic schema of events. Then we get to stage 6. Self and other are one is what I wrote. What I mean by that is that the two things which have a meaningful coincidence are actually the same thing, and everything that is otherness and ourselves is actually the same thing. So you have this whole interconnectedness with the meaning and what it means. So perhaps a more concrete example, the tarotmancer will usually take the cards for themselves in this way, and they will say, oh, okay, I understand this. The 3 cards that I have for today, this is going to be my day. And then they spend the whole day, they live out those tarot cards as much as they perceive those tarot cards, who are kind of which kind of manifest in different events, and that person plays with those meanings and plays with those coincidences in absolute depth, and they come at the end of the day and they say, well, yes, those cards were absolutely correct. And if somebody, for example, who is at stage 1, they will say, wow, man, you went completely off the map with this one. You were just making stuff up as you went. The person at stage 6 will be like, no, that's exactly how it went. Those cards were absolutely perfectly synchronistic with what was actually going on, just as I was perfectly synchronistic with those cards. Free will, how does that develop? Well, Now, you're going to Tarotmancer. The Tarotmancer has a free will style of card drawing, and they are stage one. What do they say? Well, the cards tell me you're going to make a mistake, and you're going to choose the right thing then and there. The cards are telling me what your free will is going to be. And of course, the person might not see the irony in that, or at least the philosophical contradictions in that. The idea is that the free will is supposed to be free, but the cards will at that stage, I would say, predict. Predict free will or be the determinants of free will. So the whole idea is that free will is conceived perhaps a bit immaturely at this point. So they're going to say, well, you're going to make a mistake. You should choose something else, etc., etc. Stage two. I wrote, you're going to have to negotiate with other things. Therefore, okay, now I'm wondering why I wrote this. Stage two. Okay. Anyways, the whole idea of stage two is that, yes, it is a situation of negotiation. So what it says is that you have an idea that's already made, but you might want to look at other factors in case you change your mind. So yes, you might make a mistake if you do this, but maybe not so if you negotiate, if you consider other possibilities and other perspectives within the scheme of your free will. And so at this point, you're kind of being able to expand your free will, or at least exit the tyranny of your own choice, and be able to change your mind and be able to reevaluate or rethink possible decisions that you may or may not have. Free will stage 3. Well, stage 3, once again, it's a very interesting spot, at least conceptually, because it's the absolute I would say free will of the ego. So what I've told people that I've read cards is, I said, well, the cards can only see as far as your free will. So the freer you are, the less the cards are able to predict, because it's free will anyways, right? Free will cannot be predicted because it only exists at the moment that the free will manifests. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. So a free will style card reader will probably present with options more than ideas for decisions. And with all of those options, they'll say something like, but at the end, you're the one who chooses. The cards have nothing to say on this because free will, at this stage at least, is absolute. Stage 4, when it comes to a free will style divination. Okay, yes, you are free, your free will is absolute, you have all of these things to consider, but other people are free too. So in this point, the tarot reader might take a look at different levels of intentionality, different levels of motivation about self and the other and the environment. And it will proceed to be a tarot reading a little bit more perhaps on the side of cautions, tarot reading on the side of the options of others and not just consider the options of self. Stage 5, the others are just as free as you are. So in this situation, it's not so much this whole matrix in which the free choice is embedded with different possibilities. You're in a situation where there is absolute freedom in all of these things, and perhaps the tarot will be able to, or the tarotmancer actually will be able to illustrate different places where there is freedom, where things are able to move, where things are able to modify themselves, which is in a way pretty much everywhere, but it's going to be essentially not necessarily being responsible for the others, but letting others be responsible for themselves while you are responsible for yourself, so to speak. I'm not sure if I'm explaining this easily. I would say the higher up I go in the stages, the more vague and abstract they are to me. Free will, when I came to stage 5, I wrote free will is an illusion. Because when free will is absolutely absolute, then of course it becomes in a way meaningless. So this whole taromancer, when they come all the way back to the end, there's going to be a big it doesn't really matter type of thing, and so the taromancer will be illustrating how these things you can lay back. It doesn't necessarily matter what you choose, because in a certain way what you choose will be what you want at the end. And usually it's a very I would say when a taromancer does that, it's a very, very healing experience for the person. It's a very situation where free will doesn't become necessarily a pressure to make decisions, um, but actually a joy, kind of like whether you want to choose vanilla or chocolate ice cream when you're a kid. You're still getting ice cream, but the free will becomes something very, very cosmetic in a context of a greater freedom, which is basically the act of choosing, which is basically the idea that you are still free, no matter your choice, no matter the choices of others. I am switching to telosity or finality. So the teleological diviner is coming to you, and they've got something to say. They are stage 1. Stage 1, well, there's a reason why all of this is happening to you, and the cards tell me that this is it. This is why it's happening, and this is where it's going, and this is what the cards are telling me at this point. There's not much nuance. It's just very, very, very straightforward. Uh, if someone is in stage 2, they're going to be like, okay, well, there's a reason for everything. Everything happens for a reason, and you have to look for it. You have to find it. So the cards are giving you clues as to how to look for that meaning and how that something will be rewarding for you at the end. So it's not this very, very definite goal that's there, but it's something that you have to search. It's something that you have to develop. It's something they have to work at this point. You have to negotiate with reality to figure out what that goal is that are going towards the better. They could say, for example, instead of this is the lesson you need to learn in stage 1, stage 2 would be, well, it seems that you have a lesson to learn into this, and those might be clues as to how things are going to go, rather than a very linear, this is the lesson you have to learn, this is a goal to the situation, and so on and so forth. Stage 3, telosity. It will be a taromancer that will be helping you decide what your goal is. It's going to give you ideas and perspectives so that you have a better grasp on the situation, that you can say, okay, this is what I really want, or I have a better perspective on the situation, so I decide for myself what I think the end result of this situation is supposed to be, or where it is supposed to lead me, or where it is supposed to go. Stage 4, telosity. I wrote personal goals are encapsulated within a preeminent goal, God, nature, etc. So it's going to be like, yeah, you have your life to live, and you have this perspective in life, and you have this way or this road to follow in life, because so on and so forth. For example, a taromancer who believes in reincarnation could put this in a whole context of past lives and what you are bringing and what is coming out of it, and this whole greater scheme of things, that kind of or spiritual scheme of things that kind of that kind of is a footstool on which your own personal goals or the situational goals are set up. So they might say something like, well, the whole point of the universe is to help evolve individuals towards being better of themselves. What we have here in the cards might be ideas that help you go towards the better in this situation or in that situation. So there's going to be a whole complexity of context, of spiritual or of generalized context, or it could even be nature. Okay, yes. So you're asking for a career draw on the tarot, and you are in the context, for example, of businesses. Well, businesses, they will have this problem, this problem, this problem, according to the cards. And how, for example, are you free to express yourself, express your telosity, your end goal into all of this, depending on the context, the business context you are in. Are you realizing yourself in the business context, for example? Telosity, stage 5. You participate interrelationally with the telosity of the universe. Okay, so instead of uh, you have your purpose in your career in the context of this greater purpose of the career itself, it's going to be a little bit more like, how is your purpose going to change the purpose of the career, and how is the purpose of the career going to change you? I remember when I used to work as a counselor. There was a lot of I used to say that the way I am with my clients, they transform me to become someone else in general, as in my life in general. So the telosity of an immediate intervention had the long-term effect of changing my personality, of changing my own velocity of who I am as a human being. And who I was as a human being, well, there was also an interrelationship with how the company I was working for wanted to change me, and how who I was in my goals was changing the company itself. And all of these, there's kind of an interrelationship between them, that they kind of go hand in hand. And there's a modification of these goals. There's a change of these goals, and there is also there's I would say there's an increment of self-determinism when it comes to telosity, at least when it comes to the increment of a stage. Stage 6, your goal is one with the goal of the universe. Well, that one is very, very mystical. It's not really, I would say it's something that a lot of people can read in many mystical books, many religious paths. The idea is that the diviner will be able to illustrate who you are, how your own telosity will fit with the telosity of the world, will fit with the telosity of the greater context. So it won't necessarily be something that will illustrate the contradictions and the conflicts and how it can be resolved, but more will illustrate how everything is harmonious, how things are going in the right way no matter what. Because telosity is, of course, the becoming via an end goal, and how everything kind of fits together. So it would be like I said, it would be a tarot reading that would help you understand all of those ways that everything is in harmony with each other. Finally, the causality column. So you're going to see a taromancer, and the taromancer has a causality approach to their tarot reading, and they are stage 1. How do they go about it? Well, this causes that. It's mathematical. This is what's going on, and therefore this is what's gonna happen. Short and sweet. Stage 2, well, this might happen or that might happen. So there's a little bit more negotiation that is possible. There's a little bit more possibilities. The Tarotmancer will attribute more, I would say, more agency in terms of causality to the tarot client at that point. So they'll be able to give more possibilities of causalities, or at least more chains of events, or more nuanced chains of events as to what's going to happen. Stage 3, of course, things that happen are your fault because you are in control. So if it's very, very causality, someone who's moralistic, the Tarotmancer can start saying, well, this happened because of that. For example, it's all your fault. So what I see in the cards in causality, you have had the Tower. Therefore, it's your auto-destructive or very negative emotions that have caused all of these things to happen. And therefore, if you want to cause something differently, you have to readjust those feelings right away so that they become better. But it's all on you, man, to change the causal events as they will happen. Stage 4, I wrote, your causal field of action is encapsulated within a more complex field of action. The Tarotmancer at this point will talk about all the things that you can do and all the things that you can't do about it. I'm remembering a quote at some point, I think it was Jean-Paul Sartre. The important part isn't what we have done to man. It is about what man does with what we had done to him. So it will be a causal situation where, yes, of course, there are situations where man has zero agency, where man is a victim of the causes, and we'll look into the different possible reactions to the causes that might happen, so that a very, very strong agency can become, but always, I would say, nuanced and contextualized by the causal scheme in which the person is in. Always according to the cards, of course. And stage 5. Causes above causes, metacausality, complex causality. This is going to be a tarot reading about all of the things that the person cannot see when it comes to causes, and therefore so much information should be given so that the person has a lot of choices at the end, a very, very complex choice scheme. And the person will come out of the tarot saying, wow, that person really wasn't able to tell me exactly what was the problem, but they sure did give me a lot to think about. And I feel that I have, with those things I can think about, I feel that I have a lot of power to choose depending on all of those possibilities that I can see, and I have a little bit more grasp on the situation in general. Stage 6 of causality. I wrote, a current of water within the ocean is not the water. Yeah. See, at this point, there's just so many causes. It's kind of like saying when you're able to be in a completely deterministic scheme. When people say, well, there is no such thing as free will, emotions and thoughts are already predetermined in advance, because all of it's all just neurons that are bumping into other neurons and causing our muscles to move and our mouths to speak and so on and so forth. And the idea is that when you have that kind of highly deterministic, very, very complex idea, when you want to bring that down to a tarot reading, where you are at is, I would say, paradoxically, you can only go with the flow. You can only surrender to the moment, or surrender to, as Terence McKenna would say it, the felt presence of immediate experience. You're not in control at all. There is no control whatsoever. So at that point, you're able to just simply understand the situation that you're in, be conscious of what's going on, and simply be able to appreciate it, assess it, and actually live through it, while all the while understanding the causes and even being able to predict them in the end. So okay, just noticed I'm going up to 40 minutes now, plus my other video that was 30 minutes. Okay, so today was a bit longer than the other days. I still need to conclude this because at the end of the day, there is I would say, a scheme that is going to, there's a pattern to all of this. And this pattern, of course, is the whole idea that a person starts the lower stages. A person starts with a person starts as a victim of the times. They're victims of whatever it is that is going on, and the further and further that they are going in, it is basically an expanding of consciousness, and that is the point. The whole point of divination is to have that expansion of consciousness by creating this greater complexity, or at least by bringing this information either to yourself, if you're reading to yourself, or to the other person. And it's also a question of healing. You see, when somebody goes to see somebody for tarot, people might want to say, well, I want to know what's going to happen, or what should I do, or and so on and so forth. But you're always in a relationship of healing, always in the relationship of trying to make the other person feel better when they come out of your office, or whatever, how you do it. When they come out of the bar party for which you did a rogue tarot reading on a bar stool, or whatnot. The idea is that it's supposed to bring healing to that person, and the idea is that the pattern that you have is when you look at that chart again, and you have all of this complexity that goes greater and greater and greater. The idea is that it's a greater potential of healing at the for the person. Now, remember what I said at the beginning about the Dunning-Kruger effect? If you give them a level 5 reading and that person has a level 2 comprehension of the situation, it might not help. If they do have a level 2 comprehension about the situation and you give them a level 3 reading, then you might be helping that person go one step ahead. Not in not they're going to become a better person, but at least in that situation, they might have, a broader understanding, of course. And naturally, the more you study divination, the more you will be able to advance in these stages of complexity on the one hand, and the more you will be able to vary a little bit on your principles of becoming, because naturally not everybody has the same understanding of becoming, especially when it comes to trying to predict the future. And so I guess that sums it up. Different principles of becoming, different stages. In the next video, I think I'll go a little bit more into psychological details when it comes to the whole question of helping. I'm not sure if it's going to be the next video specifically. I'd like to get a little bit on more concrete subjects, something a little bit more, a little less abstract, a little less theoretical. So we'll see what happens in the next video. So until then, I wish you all the best, and hoping you enjoyed this. Take care. Take care.